Hi everyone, and welcome to Learn Accountancy. So today will be the first lecture for accountant in the business environment, and we will be looking in specifically business organization and the structure. At the end of the session, you will be able to ascertain the appropriate organizational structure and for different types of a business, as well as you will also be able to understand the concepts of span of control and scalar chain that plays an important role among organization, and you will be able to appreciate the different levels of a strategy in an organization. So let's have a look at organizations. First of all, before we look at the formal definition, just think for a while, what are the organizations, what do they look like, and just gather some ideas. For instance, you can see a Coca-Cola as one organization. You can see that there are a group of people in Coca-Cola. All of them have got a common goals. Their performance is assessed, and they have a separate boundaries that separate it from their environment. So let's have a look at the definitions of organization. For instance, you can see it is a social arrangement which pursues collective goals and which control its own performances and has a boundary separating it from the environment. Let's have a look at some of the key words in this. The first one you can see is the social unit. As I told you, it's a group of people. They have got a collective goals aiming at the same results. Their performance is measured constantly, and they manage how the business and people to be working around. The environment of the organization sits or lives in, for example, national or international, and they have got a separate environment that basically has got a different boundaries. Types of organizations. First of all, you can see is the commercial and profit seeking, not for profit, public sector, non-government organizations, and cooperatives. So have a look at, do a little bit research on what are the different types of these organizations and what are their objectives and goals. Organization structure. There are mainly 4 types of organization structures that we will be studying, and we will also consider their advantages and disadvantages in this session. So first of all, let's have a look at entrepreneurs structure, which looks like this. You can see there is only one person who is having a control over all employees, and this is the person who is usually the owner or CEO of a small organization. All employees will have to report to this one person. The another type of organization structure that we have is basically a functional, whereby you can see that there is a headquarters, a top managers, and then there is a departments at working at various levels and operations, like for example department of operation, marketing, research and development, and sales. Then we have got a matrix structure, whereby you can see that there is at every point there is a person who will have to report to 2 managers. For example, a person who is working here has to basically report to the marketing and as well as the product manager also. And similarly, a person working here will have to basically report to the finance department as well as manager and C. So you can see that in the matrix structure, at each point of intersection, the person will have to basically report at 2 points, research and development and the product wise manager also. So this is known as a matrix organization structure. The next one that we have is basically a divisional structure. We can also call it a geographical structure, whereby you can see there is a CEO and then there is a product A, Y, and Z. Okay, and then you can see under each there are functions that are being operated, and you can pay close attention that the operations are basically repeated. That means there is a duplication of operations. So if the organization is very large, so it might be divided among its products, or if it's geographically widespread, so it can be divisions operating in the various parts of the world, and that all may be headed by the same CEO or headquarters. Let's have a look at different functions of organization. So one of the main function of organization is ordering and purchasing the raw materials or procurements, manufacturing and providing services, sales and marketing, distribution, research and development, HR, accounting, and treasury. Boundaryless organization also are there in today's era. For example, virtual organizations, creating a company outside the organization to respond to often temporary market opportunities. Hollow are basically the type of organization or outsourcing all non-core activities. And then the modular are basically ordering parts from different internal and external sources and assemble into a product. When we are learning about organization structure and function, how can we ignore Mintzberg's 5 components of organization structure? The 5 structures are basically broken down into the strategy apex, middle line and operating core, and the support staff and technostructure. So let's have a look at first strategic apex. The strategic apex is basically known as top management of an organization who are involved in a strategic decision making of an organization. They basically find the route and the track at which the organization should be directed for the next 5 to 10 years. The middle line is the management of an organization who makes tactical decisions which are varying from 1 to 2 years. And then comes the operating core, who basically deals with the day-to-day activities and operation of an organization. Support staff can be considered as an accountants who are basically helping the organization with managing funds and record keeping and transactions. And technostructure is basically the IT support that is provided to an organization to have a competitive advantage over their competitors in the current markets. Structural forms of organization. Now we will have a look at what is scalar chain and span of control. So as organization grow, different structures may be suitable. Scalar chains are basically considered as levels within an organization. And span of control is basically the number of employees who should be reporting to the line manager. So there are 2 types of structures that we have now. For example, tall, also known as long hierarchy, or having a narrow span of control, also known as bureaucratic structures, which are usually mostly employed in the government sectors, whereby there is a narrow span of control and long hierarchy. That means the scalar chain is more. There is another type of structure which is a flat, short, wide span and egalitarian, also known as. Let's have a look at how does it looks like. So you can see here on the screen now organization A and B. For example, organization A, you can see there are more levels, and so you can see the scalar chain is big, whereas a span of control is narrow, as you can see that each manager is reporting to a less, to a like less number of employees. And similarly, you can see here that there is a wide span of a control. That means all the 6 employees are reporting to the one manager. And you can see the scalar chain is here short but wide of you can see it's a short scalar chain but wide span of control. So that is the main difference between how the organization arrange themselves. Have a look at this, consider this activity, whereby you can think about a law firm. What kind of a structure do law firm has? Let's look at the organization levels. So first of all, we have a strategic level, which again makes a long-term and strategic decision of an organization over the period of 5 or 10 years. Then we have got a tactical and then operationals. Tactical are basically mid-range decision makers and managing the business on the mid-level, whereas operational is from day-to-day activities and considering and executing the day-to-day operations of a business. Let's have a look at centralization and decentralization of organization. Centralization means that where the top management is sending command and control to the lower management of organization. So usually they follow a top-down approach whereby all the decisions are taken by top management and implemented on the lower management. Whereas decentralized means that the way of decision is opposite. It's basically a bottom-up approach whereby the junior managers are given an authority to make their own decisions and take their own charge at their level, and therefore freeing the higher management so that they can focus on long-term and strategic decisions. Both has its own pros and cons, so let's quickly have a look at advantages of a decentralization. First of all, it reserves the skills at top management. Decisions are more quickly because you do not have to wait for the top management. Might be better to decentralize power to areas of expertise. It may enhance employee motivation because of increased autonomy and opportunity for training and assessment of a junior employees. However, there will be some disadvantages also. For example, poor coordination or dysfunctional decision making. Too much decentralization may be counterproductive and may lead to top management to occasionally interfere and impose the decisions. Thank you all, and this is the end of the first session.